Atlanta's streets are more than just bustling with activity. Like a living, breathing thing that feeds on whispers, they pulse. Secrets cling to the thick August air, and the truth that no one wants to be known starts to surface after the neon lights go out and the last club doors slam. The rumors that permeated the city this evening had nothing to do with politics, traffic, or even the loud music. From moving automobiles, it concerned two names that shouldn't have appeared together in the same story on the surface: Mendices Harris and Tamar Braxton. An innocuous, the celebration on Saturday night took a violent turn, leaving one of R&B's most recognizable singers bleeding, bruised, and shattered by mourning. Her face was swelled beyond recognition, and her teeth were knocked out of her mouth. Additionally, in the one question echoed like a drum beat across Atlanta in the blur of her horror: what precisely transpired between Tamar and Mendices during the hours that no one was around? The night started off so subtly that it almost seemed laughed it off. Known for fusing glitz and mayhem, Tamar Braxton organized a straightforward dinner with her old buddy Deneva, the vocal blogger who has earned his reputation through equal parts humor, gossip, and blatant provocations. They decided on Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, a posh restaurant where celebs upload filtered pictures while sipping wine and leave before the clock strikes midnight. They posed, they joked, and they toasted. At first glance, it appeared to be just another birthday meal, a night too ordinary to ever garner media attention. Dinner is rarely the end, though, as anyone familiar with Atlanta nightlife knows. The warm-up is it. Once the plates are cleaned, the real stories start. When the cameras turn off and the music gets louder. The vibe of the city changed as Tamar entered the neon-lit V12 lounge on Spring Street. She didn't move like if she had just eaten a calm dinner, according to witnesses. She shifted as if someone who is prepared to let the night reinvent itself and is bracing for trouble. Mendices Harris entered the picture at that point. His presence is never understated in Atlanta. Father, reality TV star, and Yandy Smith's husband. His name is a headline in and of itself. Fans have criticized his loyalty, made fun of his quiet, and dragged his decisions through the years. Logs of gossip. All of his previous scandals, however, faded into the background in that lounge. Everybody's gaze changed as he and Tamar drew closer to each other. They bowed their heads in whispers that nobody else was able to catch it. Witnesses claimed that while they were laughing together, their hands accidentally touched too frequently for them to feel innocent. They leaned into each other's personal space, produced the tension that is ideal for Atlanta. It appeared to be business to some. It appeared to be sparks to others. It appeared risky in any case. The two of them were still confined to their tiny bubble at 1 a.m, when the majority of the lounge started to empty out. The murmurs just became more intense. Later, other witnesses claimed to have witnessed Tamar and Mendices depart together. The city was sent into a tailspin as they slipped into the dense, night-like shadows of the South with something to hide. A man attached to Smith who was spotted with Tamar Braxton after midnight in Atlanta wasn't heading to keep silent. Stories from the streets spread more quickly than news reports. And this one had every sign of treachery. However, the true change occurred after they departed, as Atlanta doesn't end at the get-out. The after-party never fails. At that point, stories turn into scandals. Later on, Funky Denva would acknowledge that Tamar was dropped off at her house by an automobile. He said that, in an apparent attempt to disassociate himself from what transpired next, he left to meet someone else and didn't go inside. However, his justification could not dispel skepticism. It only made it deeper. Who else stayed if he didn't? If Tamar opened her door to continue the celebration that evening and Mendices actually followed her inside, then her home was the last place she was seen. Prior to her bloodied dawn, her terrifying admissions that she had woken up covered in her own blood would wake the world hours later. Her memory was gone. Her nose was broken. Her teeth were gone. Broken. She acknowledged that she felt hardly human, scarcely cognizant, and barely living. She was discovered in that condition by a friend who was appalled by the location. And, maybe the scariest of all, Tamar admitted, she was unable to recall what had transpired. Consider that. A well-known voice lost its sharpness. I can't remember how a fun-filled evening ended in screams. Atlanta was famished by that stillness, that void where the truth ought to have been. Why didn't Tamar clarify that this was an accident? If she stumbled, slipped, why not shield her reputation if it was a harmless fall? Why not get Mendici's name cleared right away? Rather, her pain was overshadowed by her quiet. Additionally, in that quiet, both supporters and opponents filled in the gaps on their own. And Yandy Smith had discovered the blank that most people drew in. Additionally, there is always one shadow standing when Yandy learns. Her cousin Kesha was right following her. Kesha is a well-known figure among hip-hop and love enthusiasts. She is notorious. She is the one who avoids smiling for pictures, who doesn't enhance her reputation for sponsors. When Yandy tries to keep her cool, she's the storm that comes in, the muscle. Viewers recall the reunion when Kesha rushed out of the crowd to attack Samantha, the mother of one of Mendici's other children. Yandy attempted to downplay it at the time by saying he didn't know her. However, what fans thought was eventually confirmed by producers. Kesha was not a woman who happened to be in the crowd. She was a member of the family. She played a straightforward but cruel part. It was she who kept the lines in place. Yandy wished to be unseen. She drew herself. Kesha is the shadow who ensures that no one goes overboard, while Yandy shares carefully chosen family images and has cultivated her brand around grace and charity. Her Atlanta never forgot that reputation speaks louder than words. Thus, the city's rumors combined into one terrifying conclusion when it was revealed that Tamar had woken up bruised and shattered. Tamar was managed. She wasn't unlucky. And everyone understood that Kesha would be the top suspect if she was dealt with. There was too little time to waste. Tamar was last observed alongside Mendici's. She was bloodied in her own house a few hours later. Yandy Smith only shared happy photos, family portraits, and professional business while all of this was going on. Updates. Some saw it as evidence that she was not involved. Others saw it as a woman's silence since her cousin's reputation spoke for her without her having to utter a word. Because Yandy doesn't have to be there. Her quiet is both brilliant and dangerous. She doesn't have to make lengthy statements or argue online. She doesn't have to come to your house. She just needs to remain silent, keep up her tidy appearance, and let Kesha's shadow speak for her. Since Kesha doesn't require evidence, she doesn't have to follow trends. She doesn't have to post at all. Her reputation alone has the power to intimidate someone into keeping quiet. And that notoriety was more loud than any in the wake of Tamar's gory confession. Denial might. Fans became infuriated with Funky DeNova's careless handling of the incident. He made fun of it rather than shielding Tamar or quelling rumors. Posting a phony, wanted poster of himself, he laughed at the idea that he might have taken her things, drugged her drink, or otherwise been the bad guy. For others, it was quintessential quirky Geneva humor. Others found it suspicious, chilly, and contemptuous. Why would a friend make such a violent joke? Was comedy a cover for guilt? Was he defending someone else? Or was he just too dependent on his unkempt image to be sympathetic? For whatever reason, his laughter did not help Tamar's case. It left her dignity in ruins and transformed her trauma into a spectacle. Then came Mendici's Harris, the man who masterfully transformed stillness into a kind of art. He didn't refuse. He made no defense. His wife was not reassured. He just let the storm rage all around him. His silence turning becomes a weapon of its own. Silence is never neutral in Atlanta gossip culture. It's affirmative. And his silence. By doing nothing, let rumors to become rumors, and rumors to become facts. Mendices appeared simultaneously guilty, culpable, and untouchable. Consider the scene. In her own house, Tamar Braxton was broken and covered in blood. Online, Funky DeNova is laughing. In her Instagram page, Yandy Smith is grinning as though her husband's name weren't blazing through every blog. Mendices Harris is seated in the background, silent. It sounds like a screenplay, but in Atlanta, it sounds like a Saturday night. And cousin Kesha isn't even visible, but she's there in every whisper, asterisk, joke, and theory. The news of Tamar Braxton's gory confession had already leaked out of her walls and blasted across every timeline by the next morning when Atlanta was a hive. Social media didn't wait for statements or specifics. It just did what it was supposed to do. It always took pieces and put them together to create its own picture of reality. The pace at which memes emerged was frightening. Women were seen stumbling through hallways while shedding fake blood in TikTok reenactments. Every rumor and hazy photo was examined on Twitter threads. 3 names were more popular than breaking news in the midst of everything: Mendices Harris, Yandy Smith, and Tamar Braxton. The facts didn't matter to anyone. The story was all that mattered to them, and there was already a villain at the top of the plot. Depending on the source, that antagonist was Kesha, Yandy's cousin. Tamar was silent, which increased the volume of the whispering. Quietness was never her style. She is typically dramatic, uninhibited, and ready to go live on Instagram or Twitter to correct her story, but she remained silent this time. No lengthy videos in which she defends herself. There were no posts explaining her fall, no interviews, pleading with fans to refrain from conjecturing. Nothing but quiet. That silence was seen as guilt by some. It meant terror to others. And it was a confirmation to almost everyone that what had happened to her was no accident. Wouldn't she be the first to defend her reputation if it had been? Would she not stand up for her picture? She was portrayed as stuck by the absence of an explanation, too humiliated to confront the truth, or too afraid to speak it. Additionally, Tamar concealed Mendices Harris did what he has always done. Best, nothing in the shadow of her own stillness. In its own right, his quiet is renowned. Years ago, when he was the subject of cheating allegations, he ignored them. He let the women to quarrel as he stood motionless when the love and hip-hop plot shifted to drama involving the mothers of his children. He let Yandy take the lead when his jail term made news, fight in public. And he once more made the decision to remain silent in the face of the disgrace of being linked to a bloodied Tamar Braxton. Fans, however, weren't buying it this time. His silence lacked self-control and respect. It appeared to be guilt. Someone appeared to be lurking in plain sight. Would he not at least reassure Yandy if he was really not involved? Wouldn't. He refute the rumors, defend Tamar, or clear the air. Rather, his quiet pulled him farther into the flames. Yandy Smith herself was next. Her silence is like gold if silence is a weapon. She refrained from ranting. She didn't clap back. Not even a nebulous denial from her. Rather, as though the scandal were overwhelming her, she sent pictures of her family grinning, updates about her business endeavors, and encouraging messages. She didn't have a name. To her admirers, it appeared as though Grace was refusing to contribute to negative. Critics perceived it as conceit. However, to those who given her past, it appeared to be a calculated move. Yandy has never had to engage in hand-to-hand combat. She has consistently had someone or something that fights for her, and that someone is Kel videos from the notorious reunion fight have made a comeback everywhere. The one in which Kesha rushed onto the stage and swung at Samantha without thinking twice. Old video like history repeating itself, it is repeatedly rerun with captions. The cousin who hits Yandy when she doesn't want her own hands soiled was dubbed Yandy's shadow muscle by online fans. Additionally, the more those videos went viral, the more people thought Tamar's bleeding face wasn't a coincidence, but rather a trend. Why wouldn't Kesha pull up in private if she could charge through a live taping? When stories about Mendices and Tamar started to circulate, why not battle to defend Yandy's name again? The reasoning wasn't clear. However, gossip doesn't require logical reasoning. All you have to do is believe. Funky Denva's antics, meanwhile, fueled the fire. He transformed the fire into content rather than putting it out. His spoof wanted poster. Fans were incensed by his irresponsible comedy and his reluctance to recognize the gravity of the evening. They found it incomprehensible that a man who had been with Tamar that night should laugh as she acknowledged that she had nearly passed away. Some saw it as comedy wrapped in guilt, as though he knew more than he wanted to admit. Others saw it as betrayal and evidence that he was not a loyal friend. Regardless of in this instance, his quips turned Tamar's suffering into a show. She was the punchline, not the star, in that circus. The number of theories grew until they overshadowed the facts. Kesha rushed through Tamar's door like she did on the reunion stage, and some swore she pulled up at her house hours after she and Mendices left the lounge together. According to others, she confronted Tamar within the club. Then the night took a turn for the worst, away from the cameras. Others countered that she was under no obligation to appear. Tamar remained silent due to her reputation alone, too shaken to describe what actually transpired. Because there is just one thing that people in Atlanta believe: Kesha will find you if she wants to. The ugliness intensified as more information was exposed. Supporters drew attention to Tamar's broken nose, missing teeth, and frantic texts, the following morning requesting a dentist's number. They cited her own acknowledgement that she was unable to recall anything. Furthermore, the story of a straightforward accident became less credible with each new detail. Every element brought the story one step closer to revenge. What is the retaliation for? For stepping as well? Near Yandy's wedding? For nothing at all? Or for being spotted with Mendices when the city was already keeping an excessive amount of eye on him, simply because Atlanta lives on creating monsters out of shadows? Silence, lies, and rumors continued to bury the truth. However, one thing was evident. This was more than a one-night incident. It had developed into something more significant. Something about power, devotion, and the price of offending someone in a spectacle-driven metropolis. On the second day, Atlanta was no longer the only place where the controversy existed. It was all over. It was impossible to browse Instagram without coming across a meme of Tamar Braxton's swollen face. It was impossible to enter Twitter without seeing hashtags yelling Yandy's retaliation. While TikTok users pieced together timelines like amateurs, YouTube thumbnails displayed gory recreations with clickbait subtitles. Investigators. The most bizarre aspect is that none of the individuals involved provided any context for the story. Tamar said nothing. Mendices Harris did not speak. Yandy Smith shared elegant family photos on social media. Funky Deneva continued to crack jokes. Furthermore, Kesha never revealed her face. That silence didn't eliminate the scandal, gave it vitality. The internet was the fire, and their silence was the gasoline. The queries became more sinister each day. Tamar failed to provide an explanation. Why not disclose that a stranger had harmed her? Why not protect her own reputation if it was really an accident? Why not put an end to the rumors before they swallowed her if she had nothing to conceal? Her silence caused a rift among her fan base. She was viewed by others as a victim who was scared into silence. She was portrayed by others as careless, and a woman who crossed into a second marriage and used blood to pay for it. In every comment area, blame and sympathy clashed. Additionally, the pictures, the broken nose, the missing teeth, and the bloody sheets were too eerie for anyone to overlook. Mendices Harris exacerbated the situation. He had always been protected by his silence. However, it backfired this time. It made him appear guilty rather than strong. Supporters contended that if he was not involved in the incident, he would At least come forward to protect his wife or clean his own name. However, he didn't. He remained aloof and allowed the tempest to rage. And he became the person that everyone pointed at because of that distance, that icy inability to offer protection or comfort. Being silent wasn't no longer shielding him. It was denouncing him. And then there was Yandy Smith, who exuded an air of superiority. As Tamar was bleeding and trended, Mendices grinned in her carefully chosen photos, family dinners, company, announcements, and positive quotes while she was pulled through the muck. It was almost uncanny that she refused to participate. Her decision to choose peace over turmoil was praised by some admirers. A lady so untouchable that she didn't even need to defend her marriage was viewed by others as conceited. Her quiet, however, appeared deliberate to those who were aware of her past. Instead of getting her hands filthy, she had her work is being done by Kesha's shadow. Yandy's brand was clean as long as the internet thought Kesha had pulled up. She didn't need to affirm or deny anything. Her quietness caused her to appear stronger than words could possibly express. Kesha, on the other hand, made no posts. She gave no explanation. She made no effort to defend herself. The whispers were not even acknowledged by her. She didn't have to. No remark was as important as her reputation. Fans already was aware of the reunion fight. She had already charged at Samantha, as they remembered. They now linked Tamar's violent dawn to those dots. Whether she arrived or it no longer even mattered. By reputation alone, she was convicted in the court of public opinion. Atlanta informed itself that she had turned into a ghost story. When Yandy's reputation is being criticized, you call this woman. She doesn't require evidence because her past is plenty. Funky Deneva was the most unsightly piece of this puzzle. For many admirers, his actions made him a suspect rather than a bystander. His ridicule, his parody-wanted poster, and his disregard for Tamar's circumstances. It caused him to appear accomplice. When your friend has acknowledged that she woke up in a pool of blood, why make a joke? When her teeth were knocked out of her mouth, why laugh? Some thought he was acting as a stand-in. Others thought he was leveraging her trauma to further his own agenda. In any case, his acts dehumanized Tamar, who was already damaged, and made her a laughingstock. More profound theories began to circulate, such as wildfire. Old videos of Tamar confessing to being on PrEP were played, and the statement was twisted into a picture of irresponsibility. They displayed Mendices' past, interactions with women, creating an image of treachery and mayhem. Yandy had mastered the art of staying clean while others handled her dirty work, they said, dissecting her well-manicured brand. Additionally, at the core of any theory, they positioned Kesha as though she were the letter's sealing signature. The ambiguity of the facts didn't matter. The conclusion had already been written by the internet. At that point, the controversy wasn't only no more than one night. It had developed into a tale about quiet, power, and image. Tamar was portrayed as melancholy, careless, and untidy. Yandy was portrayed as a clever, cunning woman who had others to battle for her, so she never had to fight. As the enforcer whose reputation was more feared than her actual presence, Kesha was portrayed as unstoppable. Together, their silence produced a story so compelling that its veracity was irrelevant. It was already believed, and it was memorable because of that. Not the missing teeth, not the blood, not even the rumors that Mendices had infiltrated Tamar's house. The silence was what kept this controversy going. Silence, Tamar. Mendices quiet. Yandy remained silent. The absence of Kesha. Funky deviation of the den. The controversy became louder in silence than in words, because stillness isn't emptiness in Atlanta. It's a tactic. It's affirmative. It's a weapon. What actually occurred then? Was Yandy's relative the one who attacked Tamar? Was there a line Mendices crossed that was irrevocable? Did Yandy plan a covert retaliation? Or was it just an accident that got out of control because no one said anything? Too much anxiety and too many unsolved questions bury the truth, and it might never be revealed. Perhaps Tamar will remain embarrassed. Perhaps Mendices will stay out of the way. Perhaps Yandy will continue to smile for her company. Perhaps Kesha will continue to haunt every whisper. That's the actual tragedy. Silence is what created this controversy and will continue to do so indefinitely. As a result, the public's perception of the image stays fixed. Tamar Braxton was broken and covered in blood. Mendices Harris was silent and icy. Yandy Smith cannot be beaten. Kesha is hiding somewhere. Funky. Deneva laughed through everything as well. Everything. An image of the nightlife in Atlanta. When it's most vicious, it's most not to be forgotten. Regardless of the truth. Maybe, but one thing is for sure that evening. Will never be seen as innocuous. It will never be forgotten as the night more loud than blood, silence screamed,